Discover the untold story of college hookup culture with American Hookup by Lisa Wade. This insightful and engaging audiobook explores the complexities of modern relationships on campus.
Dustin's last-ditch effort only made Cynthia more pleased with herself. "I just kept saying, 'I don't know,' and smiling," she wrote. "I could almost see the glimmer in her eye. It feels good to be wanted, and even someone's bad behavior can feel good if it's accompanied by that feeling." Many of my female students experienced it. Alondra, for example, the student who told us about hooking up at the bar called Murphy's, talked about how at least 10 football players followed her on Instagram within a couple months of getting to campus. "It takes about 3 minutes," she reported, between accepting a follow request from a guy and having all of the photos of her liked. At minute 4, she gets a compliment with emojis. That week she had taken the bait and given one particularly well-known athlete her phone number. He sent tons of texts complimenting her appearance and telling her how attractive he found her, then asked her if she wanted to hook up. When she said no, he countered by asking, "How long do I have to wait?" Though Alondra didn't usually take men's interest in her very seriously, she certainly enjoyed it. After a long night out, she wrote about the fun of parties, "You always feel more confident." To her, the texts she got the next day were proof that men wanted her. She liked that they often had to remind her who they were because she wasn't able to keep track of them all. "The more attention we get," she surmised, "the more pretty we feel." Many of my female students relished being desired by men, but if this sometimes boosted confidence, it at least as often crushed it. More than a third wrote at length of their fear that their bodies weren't acceptable to their male peers. In contrast, men spent little time writing about whether they were fit enough, handsome enough, or well-dressed enough to be worthy of a woman's approval. When men in my sample did express concern about their bodies, they were invariably non-heterosexual or non-white. For women, the pressure could be intense. Some felt that any physical imperfection was failure. "If a girl does not have the perfect body," wrote one, dismayed, "she is instantly not even considered." "I thought that having a body like a model was the only way men would want to have sex with me," confessed another. Men's opinion of women's bodies symbolized more than just rejection, it was an existential threat. "It left me feeling," wrote one student who worried about being unattractive, "like I was nothing." As the feminist Naomi Wolf once observed, a culture fixated on female thinness is not an obsession about female beauty, but an obsession about female obedience. Wolf argues that when women perform for the hypothetical male gaze in exchange for validation, they're not showing men that they're beautiful, they're showing them that they care what men think of them, that they'll defer to men's opinion, that they'll follow men's rules, that they'll submit. Cynthia, that girl who so enjoyed Dustin's bad boy behavior, was not immune to insecurity. Sometime before hooking up with him, she discussed her fear that men wouldn't find her attractive. "We feel that if we have any flaws," she wrote anxiously, "they will consider us ugly. Women need to be absolutely perfect physically, perfect hair, skin, weight, height, and so on." It made her feel insecure and it caused her to obsessively monitor her appearance. "I constantly look at myself in the mirror," she reported, facing the side to see how much my stomach is extending out, or how big my butt looks, or how fat my arms are. When Dustin begged her to stay, it felt good, but it was also a relief, a respite, a break from the constant worry that she wasn't pretty enough. "It makes me feel attractive when he notices me," she wrote. "It makes me feel like I am hot, someone who he would want to hook up with." Dustin's attention was a reprieve from the frightening possibility that men didn't find her sexy. Because Cynthia was heterosexual, she'd learned to think of compliments from women as relatively worthless. Only men could ease her fears. When a guy compliments me, she explained, it means a whole lot more to me than when I hear the same compliment from a girl. It means that the guy is noticing me. It boosts my self-esteem. Instead of being a source of comfort, other women were another source of anxiety. I walk around comparing myself to the other women I see, she wrote, suggesting that she saw herself in a competition with them for men's approval. Other women were a threat. If Cynthia were to be transported back to a big city in the 1920s, she would recognize this dynamic. This was the decade, if you recall, in which Americans began living in cities in large numbers and entrepreneurs began devising ways to entertain the masses. It was when courtship left the home and took to the streets, where men instead of women had control. That was the decade in which makeup became a woman's best friend and fat became her worst enemy. It was the decade in which women began, in throngs, to try to be sexy for men. It was competitive then, but the male shortage, caused by the brutality of World War II, brought competition among women to a whole new level. That was when the New York Times warned that hundreds of thousands of women would die alone. The fear was enough to transform a society's mating strategy, and going steady was born. On college campuses, the numbers worked in women's favor, though. Since only a quarter of undergraduates at the time were female, if a girl wanted a boyfriend, she could have her pick. Not anymore. On any given campus today, women comprise almost 60% of undergraduates. For every 2 women who can attract a man's attention, however briefly, there is one left with no attention at all. It is as if on college campuses we have recreated off-campus post-war conditions. Men are in short supply, and women who want or need their validation might have to work hard, even fight, to get it. The idea that women's bodies are on trial, though, isn't simply an accident of demographics. Nor is it just something that women absorb from a lifetime of television, movies, and web series, books, magazines, and newspapers, advertisements, billboards, and commercials, internet surfing, video games, music, and more, though it is women's body. Confidence isn't simply already low, it's being actively torn down by the people around them. My female students received daily reminders that their male peers were judging their bodies. Men flipped through magazines and casually commented. They posted sexy photographs of women on their Facebook walls, eliciting virtual drooling. Thoughts about girls' attractiveness are constantly thrown around in men's conversations, one of my male students admitted. Men criticized some of the most beautiful women in the world, going after models and actresses whose appearance had earned them millions. Women noticed. No one was safe. Working in the computer lab, one of my female students listened to 2 guys evaluate the appearance of a woman online. "Dude, look at how hot this girl is," said one, but the other replied with disgust in his voice. "But, look, oh my God." Distracted, she found herself wondering what exactly was so unacceptable. I assume maybe she was in an accident, or got a tan, or gained weight, or cut her hair, or changed her style. There are so many things a girl can do that sabotage her beauty. One of my female students was told, "Your boobs aren't big enough." Another overheard a guy say that a woman's tits are way too big. One student's male friend routinely complained about his frustration with ugly girls being in his line of sight. Another reported that her male friends would point to women's Facebook profiles and make comments. They're usually quick, she reported, to add phrases like, "She's kind of ugly, damn look at that ass, she's hot right," Or what do you think? About the way she looks? She expressed concern that these men talked about her this way when she wasn't around. It didn't matter if the comments were positive or negative, the fact that they were being evaluated was enough to make women uncomfortable. I know the guy will be judging me, wrote one female student nervously. For women on campus, it can feel like nagging from all sides. Being constantly reminded that men are or might be criticizing them is upsetting. And some women struggle mightily with maintaining self-worth in the face of such tough critics. Under these circumstances, many are motivated to seek reassurance from men, maybe even especially the most judgmental men, just to regain some confidence. Some, like Dustin, exploit this, but men don't have to. All the nagging gives men the key to women's self-esteem, whether they want it or not, and, in return, many women are a little more compliant than they might otherwise have been. A quietly mad population, wrote Naomi Wolf shrewdly, is a tractable one. Guys are so fucking harsh, complained one of my students, but the women on campus could be harsh, too. Women were sometimes complicit in the draining of their female peers' body confidence, mocking or criticizing how they looked and dressed. One of my female students said that, thanks to two particularly aggressive women, walking into one class was like being pelted by rotten tomatoes. I usually brace myself for a searing evaluation of my clothing, she wrote. I have been told that I look like Jane Goodall on her day off, asked, just back from the nunnery? And told that no matter what my outfit, I always manage to bring it back to kindergarten. On the first hot day of spring, she wore shorts and heard them whispering in disgust. Did you see her legs? She noted that whether she dressed like a nun or not, she would be criticized. Another of my students listed all the things that other women had told her to change about herself. I have been told that I need a new wardrobe, to let my hair grow out and dye it, and to shape my eyebrows. Oh, and I need a manicure. I have been called butch more times than I can count. I have also been told that I dress like a homeless person and that I need a proper haircut. These comments were meant to help, she thought, but she resented them nonetheless. No one had seemed bothered by what she looked like back home, and, in any case, if she had to choose between being fashionable and paying tuition, she'd pick the latter every time. But she couldn't help but be thrown by the comments. Maybe I need to learn how to dress, she wrote, adding a question mark to the statement. I have never cared about this issue until people pointed it out to me. Mean girls are a trope these days, an iteration of the stereotype that women are especially critical of and competitive with one another. We describe them as catty, drawing on an equally unfair stereotype of cats that suggests they are prone to hissing and spitting at one another. But human conflict is almost always over rank or resources. We fight when we feel we need to, when we fear what might happen if we do not. When women act catty toward one another, it isn't a sign of their essential nature, it's a clue as to where the power is. The reality television show Battle of the Bods, mercifully now off the air, can help us see this. In each episode, 5 men or 5 women, already selected for their attractiveness, line up in their underwear to have each of their body parts separately ranked from the hottest to the naughtiest by an invisible, unnamed panel of the opposite sex. The group being evaluated is instructed by the host to guess how the panel ranked them. If they are able to rank themselves correctly, that is, as the panel did, they win a cash prize. So, the typical show includes a sometimes brutal conversation between contestants about one another's flaws with the aim of somehow coming to an agreement as to which of them is the most beautiful and which the most ugly. The format is completely artificial and designed to produce as much rancor as possible, but the dynamic nonetheless perfectly distills a very real feature of everyday life for women in college: their bodies are on trial, there are winners and losers, and only men's opinions matter. In one episode, the 5 women ordered themselves according to how they'd been ranked by the hidden panelists, and the camera panned greedily to the woman ranked last. She looked dejected. "Don't worry," said the host cruelly, "I think you've got a great face." The woman bolted backstage in response, sobbing, and 2 of the other contestants followed her to try to console her. "Do you have any idea how many girls auditioned?" one asked, trying to remind her that she had already been judged to be gorgeous. "You got on the show." "You're beautiful," the other said encouragingly. But the other women's opinions didn't matter to number 5, so female solidarity didn't make her feel any better. Instead, she lashed out against the 2 girls left on stage, number 3 and number 4. "Those girls are hideous," she insisted, punching up at her closest rivals and emphasizing the word. "The one has that huge mole on her side." "It's not my fault she has low self-esteem," said number 3, the girl with the mole, her voice full of disdain. And when number 5 shouted that she'd rather have nobody win any money than be humiliated, the woman with the mole yelled back, "I got number 5 twice. Do you see me sitting here boo-hooing and crying?" Number 5 responded with a racial slur, hollering, "Sorry, I'm not a tough-ass East LA chola." It had devolved into what could fairly be called a catfight. If women accept that men's opinion of their appearance is a measure of their worth, then other women pose a threat, since they may be evaluated as better than by the ones granted the power to evaluate. Some women, in this scenario, will be willing to fight for men's attention, but it isn't because women are naturally this way. Maybe some will fight because they're viciously competitive and want to be on top, but some just fear being number 5, they're fighting in the hope of not coming in last. When women channel the male gaze, then, what they are really doing is trying to reassure themselves that when it is aimed at them, they'll be evaluated positively. It's a phenomenon intended to divide and conquer women. And it does. The women on the reality show could just get together, call bullshit, walk off, and feel beautiful without men, but they don't. Many women on campuses in America have even less freedom to walk away. Their institution is total, and it includes unforgiving and unending rounds of critique. The women who won on Battle of the Bods had the satisfaction of knowing that at least some men found them more attractive than other women, but they also got cash prizes. The rewards for women on college campuses are more than just psychological, too. Some who play the game are seeking not just reprieve from the worry that they're unattractive, but the opportunity to share in the experiences that men generally control. That is, the off-campus party locations and alcohol, the whole college experience. Men host the parties, and women's beauty, flirtatiousness, and potential sexual availability is the price of admission. Oftentimes, it's almost exactly like an episode of Battle of the Bods. Hosts pick themes explicitly designed to encourage women to dress sexily. But women understand that they are expected to do so regardless, to choose their outfit exclusively, as one University of Southern California student put it, from the whore side of their closet. A neon-themed party, described by my students, attracted women wearing the tightest and skimpiest neon and bright-colored clothing. A beach-themed party brought out women dressed as mermaids, in miniskirts and bikini tops. This happens even in winter. On any given night, wrote one student, there are a lot of girls in little outfits being like, "I'm cold." Sexy costume themes reward women for revealing and provocative clothes, stratify them and put them into competition, all while reminding them that it's their job to make parties sexy. In contrast, men are rarely, if ever, expected to dress in ways that present their bodies to women for evaluation. To the neon party, men just wore the most colorful t-shirts they owned. They wore normal streetwear clothing to the beach party. Amazingly, men even wore clothes to the anything but close party. There is nothing remarkable about men's non-participation in costuming. Instead, as Owen learned when he fruitlessly Googled burlesque, it's widely understood that the imperative to dress sexily only applies to women. Some party themes make the power dynamic explicit, placing men and women into unequal relationships, like CEOs and office hoes, employer and employee, the racist colonial brothers and Navajos, colonizer and colonized, and, simply, pimps and hoes. There's a theme to the themes. One student described a frat party as pedophilia-themed. The men who attended, she wrote, were encouraged to dress up as sexual predators. Women were supposed to come looking underage. Her roommate had gone shopping for clothes that would give off a prepubescent girl look, a glittery XL Hello Kitty brand t-shirt from the children's section, a short jean skirt, and some fat scrunchies that she planned to use to give herself dramatic, bubblegum pigtails. My student described it as an obvious attempt to solidify men's role of domination and female subordination. In some cases, women can't even get into parties if they don't dress up. Many fraternity parties station a brother at the door who decides who may enter. It's his job to pick partygoers out of the crowd, choosing the mostly conventionally attractive, provocatively dressed women, who appear willing to play their part. Once inside, women are overrepresented by design, even more than they already are on campus. Men make sure they're the minority so that women are forced to compete for their attention and the guys can have their pick. Those that possess the alcohol have the power, was how Jill Russett put it. For her PhD in education, she interviewed women about their experiences at such parties. They explained that alcohol, or the good alcohol, is sometimes kept upstairs in men's bedrooms or otherwise away from the main socializing and dancing area. To get invited into these more private parts of the house for drinks, looking better than other women, was imperative. As one of her interviewees said, "If I showed up in this sweatshirt, a guy's not going to be like, 'Here's a shot, so you wear as minimal clothing as you can,' and the power is all in their hands, like they are. Like, 'Oh, you're not pretty, so I'm not going to give you alcohol, because that is just wasting my time.'" Another of her interviewees commented, "It's definitely not a gender neutral party setting. The girls on campus don't really get to make a lot of the decisions." A Dartmouth woman agreed, "When men run the scene, they feel entitled to their space, they feel entitled to their actions. I think there is a subconscious feeling of dominance. When women are in charge of parties, events feel more gender egalitarian." A comparison between Princeton and Harvard is illustrative. Both severed any official relationship with fraternities in the 1800s, but all-male eating clubs, at the former, and final clubs, at the latter, emerged in their place. In 1990, Princeton required that their eating clubs integrate, a move that significantly changed the nature of these groups. By 2015, 4 of the 11 eating clubs elected female presidents, the largest proportion since they went co-ed. That year, Eliza Mott, then president of the oldest and most prestigious club on campus, argued that full integration shifted the balance of power. Women have greater authority over the party environment, she said, and thus greater access to security for themselves and others in danger.